I will call this regular council meeting to order. Cindy, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you remain standing for a moment, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beauty of summer that only you can provide. We thank you for the abundance in rain for our farmers' crops, and we ask for continued favorable weather for our continued summer events, including our upcoming 4th of July celebration. We ask that you keep all in and around our community safe and sound during this summer holiday, and that the service groups serving food are met with a bountiful harvest to continue with their charities. We ask that you bless each and every one of us here tonight, keep us wise and vigilant in our city decisions, and we ask for all of this tonight in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Carter. Here. Walther.
Here.
Howe.
Here.
Barstow.
Here.
Hayes. Here. Hicken.
Here.
Lee.
Okay, we have a quorum present. First thing on the agenda tonight, citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please, and you have 5 minutes.
Cindy Frio, 13138 Havens Corner Road. Many of you should recognize me. I'm also a park board member. I'm here as a citizen and also as a park board member. I have been noticing that, and this is a concern of mine, I work around construction, been noticing that some of the parks have been either temporarily or permanently used for equipment storage during road construction projects. I know over at Leeds Park, there's equipment staged over there. I've seen equipment over at Freedom Park. Usually in a construction project, there are before and after pictures taken of anywhere the contractor is going to move their equipment in to make sure that they bring the site they're using back to at least as is or agreed upon conditions. The agreed upon conditions, if it's not as it was before, are improved conditions, and that's normally what happens. There's a cost involved for the contractor who bids the work that he's got to pay for some place normally to store his equipment on site. Normally, if he maybe rents some property from somebody or has an agreement, or if the city is showing that area as a staging area. My concern as a park board member is, what is the city doing to safeguard that, the usage of that, and then also how is it going to be put back into place? As y'all know, our parks are not well funded. We're really scraping just to get regular maintenance done. So to have construction vehicles stored in a parking lot, either temporarily or for a longer period of time, concerns me about what the long-term ramifications of that are and what the safeguards are put in place. Has someone taken pictures before? Are people taking pictures after, or even looking at the area that was disturbed? Do we have fuel spillage that we have to clean up after because people weren't watching closely enough? It's just that kind of thing. I know that at Freedom Park, there's the road, the driveway entrance to the parking area gets rutted in the winter, or gets rutted and needs maintenance. I can only imagine what some large equipment is going to do over there when Taylor Road starts under construction. So I'm kind of I haven't seen anything there this past week, but I'm asking the question, what's the city doing to safeguard the city's property and to safeguard the parks? We are trying to champion to make sure the parks and make sure that we can do as much as we can with them with the little tiny bit that we're given. And I know that the new park manager is reporting on a monthly basis to the park board about how he's still getting volunteers to do something that should be normal maintenance done by the city. So I would challenge the people writing the contracts for the road construction projects to make sure and watch out for the parks and make them whole when they're done, and consider maybe not using park property. And does anybody have any questions? 'Cause that's
Well,
We're not allowed to ask.
Yeah, we're not,
Oh,
we're not
sorry.
gonna get into that.
All right.
But, no.
that ends my comments. Thank you.
Note taken. Okay, thank you. Yep. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? All right, introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Hicken, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. We had a great showing Friday night. About 100 or so people showed up to do we did our Support Your Police walk through town, and walked right down Main Street and through Bright Waters, and ended up back at Tommy's Coffee Shop, and we had some tricycle races for the kids and the adults, and we had a great evening. So thanks to everybody that came out and supported our boys in blue. Fireworks are coming up June 30th. Rain date July 1st on Sunday. Been working with the city, been working with the fire department, been working with the fire board, working with the street department, working with everybody to, it creeps up pretty quick, and we've got some, and I know EMA is gonna be here, and we'll be working with, this will be Mr. Crawford's first fireworks, so we'll be working hand in hand again to, and we're hoping for good weather and all that good stuff. Hope we see everybody there. Any questions, holler at me on that one. Farmers market's in full swing. I'm sure this is on Tim's agenda to speak about, but I'll just say that I thought the firehouse tour was off the charts. They had some good people, and that is a heck of a building. If anybody hasn't gotten over to see that new building, man, it is awesome. So kudos to those folks. I mentioned to Tim today, and I hope other folks got the invitation to Grow Licking County's ED 101 at Denison University this Wednesday night from 6 to 8. And if you didn't, I know Todd went last year.
I'll be there.
Okay, very good. So you got it through an email? Did you get it through an email or through?
I got, I think Kathy sent it to me.
when I received an email from Grow Licking County, I forwarded it to all the counties.
Yeah, okay. And it's not too late. If somebody, if you wanna go, we'll make room and I'll only eat half of what I normally eat, and you can have the other half, so. It's at Denison. It's, if you think you know stuff about economic development, you'd be surprised what you can learn there, so, cause I learn something every time I go to that. Let's see, we had an awesome, ribbon cutting with Mr. Meatball. They're really happy to be in town. He said Mr. Meatball's been around 50 years. They've owned the business 25 years, and he said they had their best week ever opening their store in Pataskala. So, and of course, my freezer's full of Mr. Meatball right now, because they got these little bachelor dinners that are just perfect for a guy like me. So Get a chance, stop in there, good frozen, Italian food, Mr. Meatball. My decision tonight on the park board, I know it's not, imperative, since we have other people on the park board and I'm still waiting for some additional information. This was a real hard choice because there's 3 awesome folks that are in the, going for this position, so, I spoke with 2 of them that showed up tonight, and I'm sure you'll let Ross know that, I'm still thinking, about the best choice, so that's why that's not gonna happen tonight. So, Mr. Hicken, what do you got?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things, a little housekeeping. Tonight, we have an ordinance on, it's 2018-4316. A reminder to council that will take a supermajority to pass, which is 5. Just as an FYI, because we did change some of the language, and it didn't go back to the planning board. Another reminder, I know I've gotten my thing in the mail from Julian Grube, I don't know if everybody else has gotten it, but it's kind of the do business with the city, but just a reminder to mail those back in. The firehouse tour was indeed a success. There was helicopters there and command units and probably double the kids that we have had. They managed to send out notices through one of the schools' emails. But it was very, very well attended, and it really is a fine facility. So if anybody still wants to go, as far as I'm concerned, you can just go knock on the door and they'll probably give you a tour. So the other thing I want to talk a little bit about, the mayor already touched on it, and it's the fireworks. We will not have another meeting before the fireworks. We have been meeting with, as Patasko's representative to the fire board, I've been in a couple meetings with them. They are working also a couple meetings with our own police department, and we're included with that. They're really attacking the fireworks as almost like an exercise. There have been issues in the past with entrance and egress to the park, and that is a focus this year. Trying not to have people just park just off of Headley's Mill on McIntosh, and also at the very least limiting it to one way. And then the same is true for Isaac Tharp. The real crux of the fire department's concern is if something goes awry, we have to get in there. And if anybody was at the fireworks last year, if you went down Headley's Mill, you weren't getting in the backside. And in fact, if you came from the other side of McIntosh, you weren't getting in the backside. There's only so much room that they have, and at that point they stop accepting cars, and that's for legitimate reasons, because the police and the fire and the organizers all want to make sure that we have people in safety zones and we're not putting too many people in the park. So, the Licking County Emergency Management Agency is indeed going to be there. They've done plans for, God forbid something should go awry. Just a reminder that it's on the 30th, and I don't know when they're going to close the park. I think the fireworks start somewhere around 10 o'clock. They'll probably close the park even 2 hours early, I would imagine.
We'll close the park when the parking lots are full. So it could be 7,
But it's flip a coin. If it's pouring rain all day, that's one thing. But this is something else that we've all been involved with and talked about this is the first fireworks in the Central Ohio area. If the weather's nice, it's taking place on a Saturday. Nobody has to work on Sunday. And people from surrounding communities might come in. Our own people might, in the past, sometimes you have it on a weekday or something, or it rain, and you don't get as much of a turnout, but you still get a good turnout. We've also had a perfect storm. I don't remember which year it was, 2 years, 3 years ago, where, I was working in a volunteer booth for cooking, and we sold everything but the tent. So, there can be a lot of people there, a long day. It's good, there's usually not a lot of fights, but they've broken it into zones so that the police department can hear there's something happening in this particular zone. Everything we can do to make it safe and productive for the community is being done by our police, our fire, and the organizers. So I wanted to thank all of them that are incorporated here for putting work towards that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
And I can answer any questions if anybody.
Any questions for Ken? All right. Mr. Zetz?
Nothing there.
Mr. Coy, anything that,
Yeah.
BJ wanted you to
Oh,
pass on?
No, he
Okay.
did not offer anything.
All right. If you have any questions that you needed directed to Mr. King, just let us know. We'll get them to him and get those questions answered. Mr. Nicholson?
Thanks, Mayor. I was on vacation last week and wasn't able to get my report out before. I gave you a copy at the dais tonight. Just a couple things. We did get confirmation that we have a clean audit. Once again, no management comments, no citations or findings, so that's great news. It is in the final stage of getting released to the Auditor State's office. Officially, it's not done until the AOS does their desk review and blesses it, and at that point, then we can publish it. Once that's done, we have a draft now of the PAFR, the Popular Annual Financial Report. You may recall last year was the first year we published that. It's a much more condensed, I think it's like 12 pages. It talks about the capital stuff we're doing, the police department, the street department, the administration of parks. It's kind of a much more streamlined and user-friendly document with a lot more graphics and less accounting jargon. So that, once we get the go-ahead, we'll finalize that and get that communicated. We received several donations for the Canine Fund. It was, I think, about $450. We just received the other day, and those have been posted into the fund. So, adding to the support for the canine. That's all I have.
Anything for Jamie? Thank you, sir. Nate?
Thank you. First off, I have a resolution tonight, 2018-031. That is to purchase a pump and the installation cost for the said pump at the water booster station. This selected vertical stack pump configures well with our current layout in the building and along with the current electrical controls we have on site. This pump will give us an additional 100 gallons per minute in comparison to our current pump. So this cost is just below $20,000. You may recall, I think we set aside money in 17 to do the booster station upgrade. That was hanging on some other future developments, and we didn't go the direction with that we thought we would, but it looks like we're going to be able to clear this obstacle a bit by adding in some new pumps and actually going with larger pumps at this station. That's kind of the plan. So that's that. Wanted to let you know, late last week, actually it would have been Wednesday evening, when we had the storm roll through. Our Creek Road lift station was subject to some lightning surges that caused the station not to operate as designed. Resulted in the bypass of about 250,000 gallons of partially treated sewage to the nearby stream that required communication with the EPA, and still working through some of the investigation of the whys and whats and what needs to happen moving forward. I bring that up to maybe refreshen you and remind you that our treatment facility is served by 2 pump stations, both on either side of South Fork Licking River. You may recall we have a pump station near the Brightwater subdivision that we call the Eastside Pump Station. And you may recall in the past we've had issues with that and lightning events. When we were putting the water tower back in service a couple weeks ago around Memorial Day, had another storm roll through, and we've got that station down to a T to where we have the exact components that seem to go haywire in those situations. Quick response eliminated any unsightly issues with the residents there, but we're continuing to press on that station to find an ultimate backup of our backups. We have a backup generator system. We need more. So we're looking at a long-term standby pump go at that station, and again, this is, it's what we have, so we're trying to make the best of it. And the struggle with that station there is, everything from the newer developed areas of Pataskala, things that started to go in the late nineties, pushing out towards Kroger. A 36-inch main goes to that particular station. If power goes out for more than an hour, something outside of our control, that has the potential to back up in homes. So we're working with some vendors to try and come up with a better solution than what we have. Just everything's so tight. You have it 2 weeks ago, and then we have the one just last week. So BJ was fully aware, and some of the things that I got to do to report to the EPA on that. So it wasn't tied into my report. So I at least wanted to let you know, so that way you don't hear it from someone else type of thing. So, but other than that, things are going well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
What will you do with the pump that you take out of service?
We're going to keep that. We're going to go ahead and rehab that pump and have it on we're going to leave it at the booster station as a backup if we need, because that'll be the pump. We'll have 2 other pumps of the same type of make and model. So we'll leave that there in the process of upgrading. And even if we upgrade, we're going to keep it just in case, whether we can use it there at the station or back at one of the treatment plants with some reconfiguration. So it has some value, just not the best value for a booster station. So.
Anything else for Nate? Mr. Haynes?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, congratulations to Jamie, another clean audit. That's impressive, and thank you for your fiscal wizardry. After that, the ramp will go out for the first advertisement tomorrow, and bids will open on July 12th. Engineer's estimate on that is $590,000, so about $50,000 below our budget. Of course, with a 10% contingency, that pretty much hits right at that $650,000. Mowing. Want to let everybody know that all the city properties we've brush hogged recently. We've got mower. All the parts are finally in stock. We had some challenges with getting the right parts. Evidently, there's a few different options there. But by the end of the week, we should have all our mowers back up and running. And just for reference, I think I let you know, Mr. Compton, that about Main Street, ODOT does not want us to mow that because of all the stakes and flags and such, and it will do more harm than good. Next, I have a resolution on for tonight, 033. This is for striping of Broad Street. This was a planned budget item. The original budget cost was $25,000. It was based off of an older estimate. Actual cost came in just under $31,000. We have available money in the street maintenance materials fund to cover that additional $6,000. And finally, Foundation Park Septic. Lanier and Jason and I went out and looked at this here about a week and a half ago, and we're shooting some elevations, and I called the Lincoln County Health Department to verify. The elevations that we would have to have for a leach field are very shallow, and it does not appear that we'll be able to make that work. Combined with, there's a requirement for aeration on that, which would be in and of itself higher than the originally budgeted amount for that, plus a fair amount of pipe that would be needed. So the total cost of that is not looking as amenable, I'll say, as we'd originally hoped, and not looking terribly feasible for the dollar amount that is available. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
So on that, Alan, thanks. On the Foundation Park Septic, we've been working on this for many years now, and we have now found out that it doesn't work. What are our options? What do you feel is a viable option? To continue pumping the tanks down, or what do you think is the option?
Do you have any ideas here?
I mean, I guess let me pose it this way. You know, there's lots of development in the area, settlements being developed, future phases are being developed. Is there any option to look at bringing a service out of some of the future development areas?
I don't think there's any development that is happening right there. Originally, I think somebody had looked at bringing a service line to that, but the cost was the problem with that. And honestly, I mean, It's not
What
a
about-
public service project, so I haven't looked at it in depth, and
How about a force main?
I'm sorry?
How about a force main? Could we put in a lift station, could we put in a small lift grinder pump and pump it up to the other one?
I'm sure it's possible.
Okay.
Nate?
And that's something that we looked at, and I've got some drawings that Watcom looked at, whether we did a pump station or tried to gravity that in. It was either $25,000 or $30,000, I forget which was which, and that was even us trying to do some in-house work like the service guys laying the pipe type of thing. So that's where the nexus of that kind of went, oh, that's not gonna work. And then I think that's how we ended up with the septic tank, idea.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're spending right now, but in the past, the city used to spend somewhere around $2,500 a year pumping that septic tank down. So,
So what's the budget you have for the septic?
It was 10,000 in 2017, I don't think we budgeted anything in 2018.
so, I mean, it doesn't take very long to get to 30,000 if you've got a viable force main that's pumping that. And on top of that, just, you know, it overflows. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It overflows into the parking lot, and if you don't catch it, if you don't catch that it needs to be pumped out, you've got material in that parking lot that is not a good thing to have in a soccer parking lot. Just letting you guys know that.
Well, and I would say if there's an overflow issue, then we need to look at if downspouts at buildings are not.
There's some,
tied in.
it's been looked at 10 different times, it's been cameraed, there's something going on that's allowing rainwater to commingle with the septic material, but whatever it is, it doesn't much matter when it's overflowing.
Well, sure, I agree with that.
I'm gonna piggyback on a question that was brought up about the materials in the parks. You know, it's not only materials that are in the parks, Alan, it's the fencing off of the parking lots. It's the dangerous situation of the materials, the equipment, the construction materials that are out there. So we have, I'm gonna use Leeds as an example. One end of it is fenced off from the public to try to keep, I guess, people out or keep them safe. The other side, the utilities are using, has no fence. And there's steel plates out there, there's equipment that's sitting out there, there's other things that are out there that are dangerous for kids to be around. And we have kids in that park. And I'm not sure, I guess I'm gonna ask the question, why are we using parks for staging areas when we have a perfectly good maintenance building on Mink Road, maintenance property on Mink Road? We have properties where houses have been demoed that the contractors could use. I'm just wondering what the reason was to use that as a laydown area,
For the-
that one specifically.
So for Leeds, and I don't recollect if the utilities actually asked her if I made that call, I don't know that I did. For Mink, or for our contractor, I'd asked the question, and my understanding was that was not terribly used, and whoever I asked thought it was okay, and I can't say as I remember off the top of my head.
Well, there was work done to put out, there had been used some telephone pole materials to use as parking blocks. Those have all been moved out of the way and rolled into the grass. It's really disappointing, quite frankly, and I'm gonna tell you that because I'm the one that's been working on it. And to come out there and see that the utility company is just using it like it's their property, so I'm gonna piggyback on some questions. Is there an agreement with either one of these companies to restore? Do they have any liability waivers with us? Are they gonna take responsibility for spills? I mean, those are all, I guess, rhetorical, just things to think about. But my next question is gonna be, is Freedom Park gonna be used for the trail, for Taylor Road, for
I have no
Taylor?
knowledge of what's going on in Freedom Park.
I said, here's what I'm asking.
Oh,
The project that's coming up with the trail on Taylor, is Freedom Park being offered to the contractor to use as a laydown area, yes or no?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, is it going to be a policy for the city not to allow them to use it as a laydown area?
I guess we need to make that decision.
Okay, who's making that decision? Is that your decision or is that BJ's decision?
I guess BJ's decision.
Was it BJ's decision to use Leeds as a place for the other
I
people to
already
use as
said I don't
laydown?
recollect.
Was it your decision or BJ's?
I already said I don't recollect.
Okay, we'll ask Mr. King, how that
All right,
decision came down.
I've got two more questions.
Okay.
On the extra cost for the tornado sirens, how much is the extra cost for the repairs? This is the one at the Mink Street Garage.
Roughly 7,000, I believe.
Is that something we have in the budget, or is that something that's gonna be asked for additional funds?
I'm waiting for the invoices to come in from the rest of the projects so I can see how that lines up.
Okay, I'm done.
Anything else for Alan? Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a couple questions. Alan, have we heard anything else from ODOT about the, potential delay to the trail construction? Do we know anything about that?
The last I heard was on Thursday, and BJ had asked if we could have till Tuesday. If they responded, I was not copied on that response, and I have not talked to BJ about it.
Anything else for Alan? All right, okay. Mr. Fulton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update on our comprehensive plan. Stakeholder interviews will be held this Wednesday morning in council chambers from 9:30 until 1:30. There will also be a public input session at the farmers market on Friday from 4 to 7. Also ordinance 2018-4314, that was the rezoning for the 4 properties on Broad Street. That rezoning request was tabled due to the code enforcement issues on Mr. McClellan's property. Our zoning inspector, Steve Blake, has been out, started the code enforcement process. He's done some updates and said that Mr. McClellan is moving along and having those things cleaned up. Once we get to a point where there are no code enforcement issues on the property, we can kind of do a before and after and say, here's where we were, here's where we are now, and then it would be at the pleasure of council to determine if they wanted to move forward with the rezoning request. Mr. Hicken mentioned 2018-4316 for the cell towers. And the last one I wanted to mention, there's an email I have that I gave, or at least put on the dais before everybody this evening. Pulte Homes is doing something with veterans, and it's called Build to Honor. They've selected a veteran who, and it goes on a little bit with his bio and some of the things that this veteran has been through, but what they will do is essentially build him a house, give it to him mortgage-free. After talking with Pulte, they say they even furnish it, put food in the pantry. So with that, I just wanted to bring it up to council regarding that. I'm sure there'll be some ceremony type activities in the future, but at this point, we're just moving through the process to get permitting and the house under construction. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
I just have a tag on that. I'm trying to think of her name right now, but the lady that was, had reached out to me said we're gonna throw some dirt on 10 o'clock, the 25th at 839 Corliss. So I guess that must be the lot.
This is a different address.
Yes, they have it at lot 256, and off the top of my head, I don't know the exact address, but they have not, I've been kind of sending this to BJ to coordinate to see when they will
Is it
do.
this one here, 851?
851 Corliss is what they have for that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't wanna start digging at the wrong house, and
That'd be awkward.
I'll definitely reach out to her, but she said something about 10 o'clock on Monday morning on the 25th, so I'll reach out to her again. Yes, sir.
Scott, we had talked just in passing, there was a sign, there was something about a sign, and they wanted to put a sign on the site, and they were gonna have to make an application to us for a sign, and I guess I'm kinda wondering if we might wanna waive all planning and zoning fees for that site.
That would be fine. Because it's through Pulte and the sign companies, we have an asterisk on the new fee schedule that if the sign is for not-for-profit, then we have the ability to waive that, but since it was for-profit through sign company and Pulte, we don't have the ability based on that asterisk. So then we would be back to normal council procedure that if a fee would be waived, it's at the pleasure of city council.
Motion tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to waive all planning and zoning fees for the Build to Honor House.
Got a motion on the floor,
Second.
seconded by, was that Mrs. Carter?
Yep, that was me.
Discussion and roll.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes. Yes. Chicken,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Motion passes. Anything else, Scott?
No, sir.
Mayor?
Yes.
Hey, Scott, a couple questions for you. On the stakeholder interview,
Mhm.
I understand from a couple of stakeholders that they got information about this past Friday. That was when they received their letter. Is there an alternate date besides the Wednesday, the 20th, given that that's only 5 days' notice for a meeting that's gonna happen between 9 and 1 on a Wednesday?
Well, unfortunately, there's no other meeting that we scheduled with OHM. They selected that date, so we got letters out. Some got them sooner than others. The stakeholders were folks in the community nominated by the steering committee. So the steering committee was asked to nominate people for these stakeholder interviews. And there's 3 different group interview sessions, 9:30 to 10:30, 9 to 10, 10:30 to 11:30, and 12:30 to 1. So folks are able to make those. They've been invited to come to do that. If council would like to have a second round of stakeholder interviews at a different date and time, that would be up to council or BJ, or that would be kind of beyond my control, because I imagine that would come at an extra cost.
I guess it's not a question of an extra meeting. It's a question of why was such short notice given. I mean, 5 days' notice, to me, would be impossible for me to make a meeting. Impossible.
Well, as I mentioned, some letters got to people before, others. I wish I could have sent them out earlier, but there was still some finalization on who the stakeholders were to be, so I got them out as soon as I could.
Okay, different question for you. On the meeting at the farmer's market, is that going to be counted as a public meeting for OHM? They had a certain amount of public meetings they were gonna hold.
That will be one of the public
And
meetings.
how do you feel what do you felt the purpose of the public meeting was? Is it to gather information, or is it to actually have a forum of people that are talking specifically about the comprehensive plan and detailing, asking specific questions? What do you think that public meeting is about?
From my understanding, at this point in the process, we're still in the information gathering portion. And during our conversations with them, their approach was to use non-traditional public hearings or public meetings where it wouldn't be come to City Hall. They try to go out and about. They said they've had one when they did work in Pickerington. They held it. I think they just opened a brewery there, a microbrewery, so they held it there to try and get more turnout. Instead of coming and they say it's like, instead of like a boring public meeting, we do it where it's people are out and about, give it some more appeal, like in this place with the farmer's market. If people are already out and about, they can participate. So at this point, it's just information gathering. Once we get through the process and the plan starts to come together, then they'll do public meetings to say, here's what we've heard, are we on the right track?
And that'll be held like in a forum such as council hall, council
Mhm.
chambers. Okay. And is there any kind of advertisement being done for people to know to go to the farmer's market, or is this gonna be just kind of if you happen to be there, they'll ask you the questions?
We've put it on Facebook, it's on the city's website. I know we've shared it with some other folks to get word out. The steering committee members are sharing it, so.
And I'm sharing it on some posts.
Yeah, so we've kind of a word of mouth to get it out there through email, Facebook, city's website, etc.
Thanks.
Anything else? Yes.
I got 2 questions for you right on that subject. The first one is, do you intend to use the street fair as a venue either to gather information or disseminate the plan? Or does it fall when they're writing the plan, so we lose that opportunity to reach those people? That's my first question. And that may be more of a statement, like a reminder, right? The other question piggybacks a little bit on what Andy said. I think that the amount of time it is what it is. They chose the date. I as a council person would be in favor of adding a second date. And it seems to me like the farm market gathers mostly people from the village, for lack of a better term. I think that you get decent foot traffic there if the weather's nice. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are no events on the far west side, but if we added a second type of come in and talk, putting it, I mean, I guess I'm looking for another place where we can make sure we gather everybody in the city.
And that's definitely something that if we wanted to go that option, we could definitely do that. The next step in terms of information gathering is a survey that they're gonna put together, a list of questions. We're gonna do postcard mailings to all registered voters. We're gonna get it on our website, we're gonna get it on Facebook to get that out once the survey has been compiled in terms of what questions we'll be asking, and then make sure we have enough lead time to get the notice out that that's available. We'll have it online, so it'll compile the data immediately, and then go from there. So it's multiple steps in terms of information gathering, that it's not just, here's your 3 meetings, you better make one of these. It's
Well, that's good.
a multitude of different ways to get out and about.
Is there a time when the gathering stops, or, cause, you know, our events that happen throughout the year, or the summer, I guess I should say, cause Cookout with a Cop would be a good spot, so it's, you know, street fair, but if you're gonna come to a certain part and say, well, we're done gathering information,
I didn't think-
Yeah, there'll definitely be a point that, you know, that we have to stop, that we've gathered information, but I think there's a level of flexibility they've built in, that if we do the stakeholder, and then we do the farmer's market, and then we do the survey, bring it back to the steering committee. Is this enough? Do we have a clear enough picture, or do we need to find other methods to reach out and say, for example, if we didn't get the west side, we didn't have enough feedback from the west side, is it another opportunity that, well, let's try Cookout with a Cop, or maybe to get more feedback, we could do the fireworks or street fair or something along those lines, maybe not the fireworks at this point, to get more feedback. But that would be, once this comes in, that goes then back to the steering committee and say, here's what we have heard, what do we think?
okay. Mrs. Carter?
I met with BJ and Scott last Friday, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down, because I feel like I've just become a voice box on this topic. I mean, everybody on the steering committee has great intentions, but there is one person on that committee from the west side of town. One. And if a meeting is changed at the last minute and he's out of town on work, there's no representation for the west side of town. I understand that there's surveys and so on and so forth, but, you know, if you just cut through it and say what it is, there's a disconnect between the west side of town and the east side of town, and all the activity goes on the east side of town. You've got your farmers markets and your parades and your whatevers and whatevers. The residents don't come down here for that stuff. So I proposed that we reach out to COTC and set up a date and use their venue and advertise that to all residents across the city, but to make it more convenient for people who also live in this town to get to something. And I also offered my services to Scott, and Scott, I'm by no means chewing on you, I'm just irritated. You've done a really great job facilitating something that we've not done before. But come July, when we start advertising this survey, I need to make sure that the people in my ward have a voice, and it's not just me. So I will be knocking on the doors of the residents in my ward, handing out paperwork and advertisement and asking them to please fill out the survey. I have a lot of hope for this comprehensive plan, but I have a number of concerns that we're just gonna end up in the same place we always are, because it's the same voices. So I spent a lot of time with BJ and Scott last Friday and talked about some of those concerns. So hopefully we can find a way, and everyone on council would help with that effort to get that word out.
Well, I think COTC is a good idea. I also think you revisited Cookout with the Cops on the west side, and believe me, I know they don't come to all the events, but most of the west siders do come to the street fair, so, I mean, that's kind of.
Mayor, I hate to tell you, but that's not true.
Well, I live on the west side, so.
So do I.
For 30 years, so. Okay.
Mayor, one other suggestion
go
was
ahead.
the homeowners associations were a great success for at least the levy, bringing people to talk to us through the homeowners associations, and those ones on the west side are much stronger than others in the city. So, just a suggestion.
All right, anything else for Scott? Mr. Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to say that Municipal Park has a makeover. The shelter was replaced on June 6th. Friday, we placed 2 new grills, and also we tore down the old volleyball net, placed a new one up. So now the next job is to put in some playground mulch, and then that whole place will have a new makeover. With July coming up being National Parks and Recreation Month, I have a slew of activities scheduled on the west side and also some on this side of town. So I'm hoping that we're able to continue to get a good turnout with a lot of those events. Went through the garage down at Foundation Park and went through inventory of a lot of items that I found. I found a lot of baseball items, a lot of hockey items. The idea was to get rid of those things on Gov Deals, but with the age of them, I'm thinking that most of the items have depreciated in price and should be, or at least less than $1,000. So it might be feasible for us to think about offering those to our youth programs in the area, seeing that we don't have those programs now. We haven't discussed with Parks Board per se what we want to offer, but that's an option if we would like to go that route. To go along with inventory, with the current jerseys that we were using, there's approximately 160 adult-sized jerseys. We've been paying $16 for a single unit of a reversible, which is pretty heavy. Oftentimes you might go to a game where a little girl might be there and she's wearing the wrong color. It might be feasible for her to have to change in front of other people, and I don't think that's a good thing. So something that I thought of probably in April was to go a different route. I'm wearing actually one of the shirts that was proposed. So we would probably go to a shirt like this, which is lighter and also cheaper, a white and a green versus going with multi-colors. The way that we have it wrote up on Section 6 is not the way that we're gonna do it. The cost of the uniforms will be paid by the registrant. We will not encumber or combine that cost with increasing the registration fees. So the cost of both uniforms combined is $14. So that is a route that we're trying to move towards. But I did give all of the registrants and participants in the past the option to continue to utilize their reversibles. So it's not a thing to where I'm trying to totally go towards something that's lighter weight. They are still able to save the money. They pay $20, you might as well use it. So we're gonna stick with the white and green. To go along more with the recreational funding, currently with the soccer program, we give approximately 2 balls and 5 cones to all coaches. That is not sufficient from my standpoint to offer a child and a coach minimal equipment to see them succeed, even if it's at the recreational level. Going through inventory upstairs and also other places in the garage, bags of them, we found approximately over 300 balls that were in bad shape and could be salvaged, some of them. But the current balls that we do use now, between the ages of 4 and 15, we have a total of 135. So the idea is to be able to purchase additional equipment for those coaches so that they are able to have a viable practice for their children. And most of their players are most of the teams are between 8 participants to 14 participants. Also, to go along with the recreational programming and supplies, in April and also in May, I had brought up the AED conversation. The AED didn't go anywhere, so I would like to pursue that with some of those funds. Is to purchase an AED, as I'm currently constructing a emergency medical, emergency medical plan for the recreational programming, so that I can properly instruct my officials and also volunteers. And if there was a medical emergency, we would need something there versus calling the EMS, as it takes time there. So every minute that's passed, we do have someone that's there with a cardiac arrest. That's 10% of life that's lost, so it's very important for us to be able to have something on site. Coaching education. So in the past, we have been paying our volunteers, I think $60 to $65 to volunteer for us. This year, I am starting something new. Starting in July, every coach who is wanting to volunteer or reaching out will receive a professional, I want to say a certificate. We have a professional coach that's coming in, and they're going to actually receive certifications for their time there. And it's a 3-hour course, so in lieu, I'm hoping now and in the future, in lieu of paying them the $65 to volunteer, if they are interested, to please to pursue the certificates that are being offered by the city if they would really want to improve the soccer in the area to translate to both Licking Heights and to Watkins school districts. That's all I got on my agenda.
Anything for, yes, ma'am?
Linear, I just need, I'm a little confused about the t-shirts. So the players would purchase a set of 2 t-shirts then?
There'll be a white one and a green one, so we'll stick with the existing colors. Currently, they're reversible. They're not really breathable, they're very heavy,
Oh, I know, my son wears one, but
so,
my concern, and I'm speaking on, from experience.
yeah.
I'm the mom that goes there and have no idea what color my team's wearing that day.
So my,
And so if I'm in a white t-shirt and my team is green.
I thought about that already. So what we typically do in the past, well, when I was younger, we always wore both. We always brought both. So I'm going to encourage from this point on to coaches and also to parents and communicate with them that no matter what day it is, bring both to alleviate that issue. So also the coaches should be telling their players and their coaches and their parents what color they should wear the day before. So I want to make it kind of like a strict thing, but I do know there are instances where someone may forget, so bringing them both will be an option. But my concern is definitely the heat of the days, and it's gonna be hot in August. And also we didn't have many hot days in the spring, but I would like an opportunity to be able to have the participants wear something outside of just on soccer Saturday. So if they're going to Kroger's, they're able to wear it. They're going to school, they're able to wear it. They're able to represent the Pataskala soccer program throughout the city besides on Saturday. So
Well, and I appreciate it. I understand where you're coming from. I'm just, questioning if it's practical. And I mean, ideally, I would have everything in my kid's soccer bag or in his swim bag or wherever he's supposed to be that day. So he had exactly what he needed when he got there. So I'm just thinking, you know, as parents, as a number of them who have a number of kids, you know, and the coaches are also just volunteers and parents who are trying to, you know, do that in their spare time and get that word out. So, I like the idea of, something lighter, but I also like the idea of something that can be reused and you only have to have one thing, so,
it wouldn't be
maybe
a
just-
yearly purchase.
just something a little more to think on just a little bit more, maybe a little more brainstorming, just a suggestion.
Hang on a second. Andy?
Just a couple quick questions, I'll let Tim go ahead. First I want to say, thanks for being down at the Active Fit. That was a great Saturday, on that. The write-up that BJ had given us on some of this stuff is a little confusing to what you're describing versus what BJ had written up. The jerseys themselves, they will be charged separately, or they will be part of the participation fee?
So before, me and Jamie talked about it prior, before I was able to contact or discuss with BJ, and as soon as he was going on vacation, it was already written up.
Okay.
So
So we're going with they are
They're-
not part of the participation
they're
fee?
not part of the participation.
Okay. And then the second thing is you were talking about with what the coaches were paid. They weren't really paid, they were refunded their registration fee for soccer.
Okay.
So what is I'm trying to understand how these volunteers,
Yeah.
and a lot of them did it and wouldn't refuse to take their registration fee back and donated it back in.
Yeah.
How do you encourage volunteer coaches if they're not going to receive anything not that a certificate is a good thing to have, but it's not required to coach in Pataskla, or will it be something that you're gonna require?
Yeah.
You are gonna
It's
require
not
this?
a requirement, it's highly encouraged.
Okay, so it's encouraged, but we were always short of coaches, was my experience. So when you're short of coaches and they don't have certificates, and you're not, are you still planning on refunding them their registration fee, or is that not going to happen?
So the idea is not to give it to everyone, so for all the ones who sign up for the class, they will not receive that refund. So currently, we're spending roughly $4,000 a year on refunds for all of the participants. So
Right.
if we eliminate some of those who are actually gung-ho and excited about improving, the majority of those guys will take it into consideration, like, hey, I'm receiving something from the city, I'm actually trying to pursue and coach my younger athlete. I've had a few good comments about it, so that's the reason why I went that route.
Okay, I would echo some additional thoughts on that, it's not easy when you're short of coaches, and,
This past spring, I was blessed to have more than what I needed,
that's great.
so.
That's great. I've got a couple other questions here. As far as the movie night, you didn't comment on that. Can you give us some details on the movie night? It says here July 27th. What park is that gonna be held at?
Freedom Park, so at Freedom Park, the movie will start at dusk.
And do you have anybody sponsoring that at this point?
Right now, I know I have Otis at State Farm, he is going to come into the office. Debbie from Bremen Bank is wanting to sponsor as well. Nothing has come in, but those are the ones that I've spoken with.
What is the cost for the movie?
$650 for the movie, that's them bringing out the electricity, bringing out the movie screen, and also pays for the personnel that is there. $450 for the movie licensing, and we're gonna be playing Peter Rabbit,
So $1,100.
yes,
Okay. And you feel like you're gonna get sponsored for that?
yes.
Okay.
Still have to have a meeting with Tech R2, that one, we weren't able to have a meeting with them this past month, some things came up with them. So they were definitely a viable option, and we're gonna go about being a sponsor for that event.
Okay. I've got a few more, but I know Tim has one. I won't, go ahead, Tim.
Probably have more than one. My first comment is, changing the jerseys. I get it. I think you'll probably get most parents that are, cause I've been there too, they'll probably hold on to the reversibles as long as they can.
Which is totally fine.
I know, that's just I wanna be clear though, is any of the $15,000 that's added on to this ordinance, is any of your $15,000 going for jersey purchases?
Well, currently, right now, what was given or what's left with the Lancaster Sporting Goods, if we have the amount of people who are gonna purchase new ones, we don't have the right amount of money to pay for that, expense.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is, as you look at this 15,000, and this might be a Mr. Nicholson comment as well, as I understand it, this isn't extra money that we're being asked to give. This is an appropriation for money that came in over and above in the spring. And this is freeing that money up to be spent, is that right?
That's my understanding, yeah. It's the revenue, the fees, the generated donations, whatever. Again, the revenue side of the equation, we get the money in, but then we need to have enough appropriations to spend the cash we have.
And we brought in $38,000 just from the spring, from softball and soccer. And account balance of $27,000 is available. And we're asking for 15.
So when we look at an AED, balls, jerseys, whistles, cones, everything else, is there some other component to the 15,000 that are there some, like
Yes.
some recreational programs, or is another shelter house roof, or?
Well, the idea is to be able to add some shade to the park. My biggest issue with the soccer Saturday is that a lot of families come to the park and there's nothing else to do besides soccer. The small playground that is there does not really keep the kids, occupied. So I would like to bring out some separate outdoor education activities to be maybe at a shelter house that's nearby, during those times to give the parents and also the older kids or younger kids a different option while their brother or sister is playing the game. So maybe offering some art classes or workshops, maybe even offering maybe a cornhole during those Saturdays as well. So trying to bring extra activities into the Saturday to spice it up a little bit, per se.
And I guess my final question would be, in your mind, does your rec budget interact with your park budget? Meaning, could some of this be spent on a septic tank?
Never really thought about that, and I'm gonna say right now, I believe the recreation, from what I've talked with BJ, our current recreational fees have paid for everything. So that's umpires, I'm probably gonna say no.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see if, I think Mrs. Carter was up next. Did you have anything?
I was just gonna say, when you're with the movie and the park, July 27th will be here,
Before we know it.
like around the corner. So if you're gonna do something like that, I think it would be well received, just to get some clear advertisement out for it, and make sure you share it with us so we can try to get it out to as many people as we can. And as far as sponsors, I mean, look for other types of things. I know there's vendors, like Kona Ice will come out and sell Kona Ice to people, but then they'll donate a percentage back or something like that. So, and some food trucks will do that, so maybe some other things to consider with that, and, that would bring also more of a draw. But the big thing is advertisement. If we're gonna spend the money, I really wanna make sure that we get the word out that we have it, because I think it will be, it's exciting, it'll be well received.
Next week, I'm anticipating to contact Craig McDonald at the, I think it's the Standard or the Post. Advocate, and I'll be writing an article specifying what events or activities that we have already scheduled for the month of July. It's kind of like a press release thing, so that it will definitely be in the newspaper of some sort. And in regards to the food trucks on that day, with the parking lot and the minimal space, I'm not sure how that would really fit in. Talking with BJ, it may be too congested per se, because we'll have to open up a gate or a fence to allow additional parking, since there's really no walkway through. So we definitely thought about it.
Well, and there's, I mean, and some things to consider too is I know there's a lot of residents right along the Taylor Road corridor who do small things at school events. Like I know there's a family that does kettle corn. And they're smaller type things, and they kind of show up on their own. You know, it doesn't take a lot of space or, you know, things for us to provide them, for them to get moving. So, and there's a large network over there, especially at one of the elementary school PTOs, that I could connect you with to maybe get some of those. Just saying, you know, if you're gonna go out to watch a movie, it's fun to eat popcorn and cotton candy, and let your kid run around in the dark like a maniac. So
I agree.
yeah.
Mr. Barstow?
Yeah, I don't know what to say. You have a park that has a leaking septic tank. Get it fixed. New jerseys, all this other stuff, coaches. I would, maybe I'm an idiot. I would suggest finding a way to get the leaky septic tank fixed first, and then move on to other things. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I've got one other quick question. On the sign, the Liberty Park sign.
Yes.
I went out and looked at that, and it looks like maybe someone had a small campfire underneath the sign. Looks like
Melted it up a little bit.
Did we look to see if any of that could be fixed before we replace it?
That was my initial thought, is to call, I think it was Brandon Signs.
Brandon Signs did the
to
sign,
see if they
yes.
had it in some type of warranty.
Well, or can we put something green over it, or something that just, $1,500 is pretty steep for a sign.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what it would cost to replace it.
Yeah.
Is there another
Option.
choice,
Yeah.
another option?
I'll call them.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest that. or hope for that. The other one was, I think it was at Municipal Park, the volleyball net that used to be up at Municipal.
Yes,
That was a senior, Watkins did a senior volleyball team, did that whole volleyball court and everything, and net and everything, and it's down now. Is there any plan to replace it,
replace
the net?
The net was not a good net.
Well, but it was, okay, so let me go back a little bit. This was a volunteer program that they came in and did the whole court, they put the net up, they did all those things.
Yep.
If the net, degraded and needed to be taken down, do we have any plans to replace that net?
It's already replaced.
It is replaced.
Like just a whole new structure, it looks
Okay.
the bomb.
Good,
It's
okay,
good.
and that was, I had gotten a question on that, all right, thanks.
Anything else for Mr. Crawford?
Mr. Mayor, I have one more thing, and I'm not gonna beat dead horses, I just want to, on the parks thing, just give it another perspective too, because I hear what Mr. Barstow's saying about the septic tank, and obviously this is something that has been talked about for a long time, and I don't know why it's not fixed yet, which is, it's kind of insane, but when we look at our parks and our budget, in order to fund our parks, we have to have events that draw people and recreation programs where maybe we can make some money to continue to build. When it comes to things like severe maintenance, we're talking drainage issues and septic tanks and roofs, I would like to see us as a council look at our overall budget and make more of a priority to repairing some of those items in the park so we can have recreation programs. I mean, if we're gonna tell people, hey, we're gonna use your money to fix our septic tank, but we're not gonna give you more programs, people aren't gonna participate. It's, they're not getting anything out of it. So maybe as we look at our parks and we quit treating them like we're, it's the last thing on the list, that we start giving it just different perspective and taking a step back.
But, man, this has been part of our budget for 3 or 4 years. When we've talked about this septic tank for
Then why are
a
we asking
very
them to
long
pay
time.
for it?
Well, it needs to be done. And whether we need it in our budget or it's a supplemental, we need, if I were, my opinion is this needs to be a priority in the summertime to be done. And another alternative needs to be found out, and I agree with you 100%. This is an issue that needs to be completed. Whether it was in
I
our
didn't say
budget
it
for
wasn't.
2017, 18, 16, whatever, it's not done.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's not done because we didn't know what, the whole realm of what was needed and how much it was gonna cost, right? So as we move forward, clearly, I think council has enumerated that it's a priority. But as I look over at the different, the street department's not responsible for paying for it, neither is the utility department. And for us to have said that it's a priority for years when there isn't that money being funneled towards it is why it's not done. In my opinion, I might be wrong, we might have had it in the budget and for some reason it just didn't get done. But I don't recall that was the case, and I certainly don't, and if I knew it, shame on me, because I didn't bring it up. So, I think we know it's a priority. I respect the concept of recreational programs. This is recreational money that came in, you're asking to allocate for it, I understand that part. But I'm also cognizant of, I guess I'm telling you, don't give them anything to hit and don't walk them. But I really don't mean to, I mean to say that both are a priority. That'll be the last I say.
Okay. Chief Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to announce that 2 of the 3 candidates for our open positions should be finished up with their process by the end of the week. And we did offer our 3rd open position today to a female, and so she's starting that process, and we'll be probably about 3 weeks in before we get final word on her to get us right dates. And that's all I have.
Very good. Anything for Bruce? Committee chair? Yes.
Bruce, are we able to utilize your citizens police for the traffic control for the movie?
I will bring that up to them.
Thank you, sir. committee chair reports. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, we had a finance committee meeting this evening and discussed a number of things. As Jamie already mentioned, again, congratulations, the audit is, we're just awaiting final word from the state, but that was, again, a very good report on that. Finance department is relocated. The budget schedule is out, that's been passed out to the department heads, so they can work on that. I think they're already working off the schedule, is that correct, Jamie? It's already
On the
in
capital
process.
stuff now.
So just for council's edification, the schedule proposes a budget planning workshop on September the 24th. So I'd ask folks to look at their calendars and let me know, or BJ, if that's gonna be a good day for folks, so we can set that up. We've done that typically the past several years. Let's see, what else did we talk about? One of the issues we talked about was in relation to the income tax code. Right now, Jamie is able to refund, it's up to 3 years, is that correct, Jamie? Look back for folks who have incorrectly paid Pataskala income tax.
Okay.
Yeah, who have incorrectly paid Pataskala income tax. They're not a resident, they think they're a resident, they pay us anyway. We're always very happy about that, but we really should be keeping that money. The proposal is to try to move that look-back period to maybe up to 5 years. We need to work with Mr. Zetz on that, to make sure the legislation is prepared correctly, and that we can get that to council, but Finance Committee and Mr. Nicholson will keep working on that. The delinquency program, as you know, we do send out letters. We decided to do that this year. Jamie talked to me about that, so we can meet the deadline. We're just gonna send the letters out to folks who are delinquent. That's been pretty effective, I think. Jamie reports that's been a pretty effective program.
Very low cost. We recovered about $400,000 last year.
It's a very effective program. We did discuss a little bit of the utility bill and system enhancements. We're not going to talk about that really because the utility committee brings that to council. And then we talked about some other things about, and I'll get with Mr. King about this, about department heads preparing budget proposals, especially when they come into supplemental. So we did discuss that. So, anybody has any questions? It was a very good meeting.
Any other committee chairs? All right, seeing none. Old business. Ordinance 2018-4316 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Kathy, when you're ready, go and read.
Ordinance 2018-4316, this is the third reading. An ordinance to amend chapter 1293 of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskala and repeal all other ordinances and parts of the ordinances in conflict therewith.
Discussion? And roll.
We need a
Order, Mr.
motion
Mayor.
to adopt.
Yes, we need a motion to adopt.
I'm sorry, yeah, need a motion to adopt, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move we adopt ordinance 2018-4316.
Got a motion to adopt by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
ordinance passes. Ordinance 2018-4321 for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading.
Ordinance 2018-4321, this is the second reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to amend ordinance 2018-4321 by substitution.
Got a motion to amend?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hicken. Motion by Mr. Hicken, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion on the motion to amend? Roll, please.
Hicken,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Ordinance is amended. Back to discussion. Any discussion on the second reading? All right, resolution 2018-031, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with Buckeye Pumps, Inc. for a water booster station pump.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow. Who said that? Seconded by Mrs. Hayes. Discussion and roll.
Hicken,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2018-033, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Griffin Pavement Striping to provide new pavement markings on the entire length of Broad Street within the city of Pataskala.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken and seconded by Mr. Barstow.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Question on this. Alan, you had mentioned that we had 25,000 in the budget initially, and there was 6,000 to cover it in the increase, essentially. The ordinance, or the resolution, I should say, is asking for not to exceed 35,000. Are you sure, is that the right number on that one, or?
Contingency,
So you have contingency in there for striping?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
So there's already money for that.
No. So there's 25,000 in the original fund. I don't remember what that is off the top of my head. And then in the street maintenance materials, we have the additional 10,000 if we need it. We certainly have the 6,000 that,
Thank you.
in the original budget, there's 25,000 in the original line item, which I don't recollect what that is. To cover this difference, there is money in the street maintenance materials that will definitely cover the 6,000 and will cover the 10,000 additional if needed.
Mr. Hicken?
Alan, as I read your justification, one of the things, at first I thought about Broad Street and I had any problems with it. And then you put in there about night and rain, and I suffer from that, from the ability to, my eyesight goes down a little bit, so I appreciated you doing that. I guess I don't necessarily, well, apart from this, there are some other areas of the city that might need striping. Do we stripe those usually? Is this a big thing? So this is Griffin pavement? Like, for instance, Township, right? Township got repaved. There's kind of like no edge lines on it. Was that something that we would stripe or should stripe, in your opinion?
I guess it depends on how you look at it. So Broad Street is obviously a state route, and it's a higher speed and a lot of different lanes and such that you can use, turn lanes and whatnot. So I think Broad Street is very important, and I don't have too much problem seeing, but at night and during the rain, I've had problems seeing for certain. And it's faded in a number of places. Township Road's a 25-mile-an-hour road. As you see here, it's about $1,000 a mile to stripe. I don't think Township in the section we're talking about ever had any stripes on it. So we matched what was there and put it back. And actually in the ramp this year, in places we're just putting back center line where it doesn't seem necessary to put edge line when it's only 35 mile an hour. It's cost savings that, a lot of our roads are just kind of old township roads and have no stripes. So I think a center line's appropriate on a lot of those. But March 25 on Township, where we've never had it, didn't seem like a justifiable cost when we have so many other things that we need to spend money on.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Any motions tonight? All right, additional citizens' comments, anybody wish to speak? Okay, let's
I
go
would-
down. Yes, ma'am. Name and address, and you have 3 minutes, and it must please be a topic that we discussed here tonight.
Cindy Frio, 13138 Hughes Corner Road. The topic of the septic tank at Foundation Park is what I'd like to address. As long as I've been a park board member, this septic tank has been an issue. I take great exception to any suggestion that would take funds that were any additional income that was collected due to programs, the soccer program and the baseball or softball programs, to supporting facilities. council needs to support the facilities until we can get a levy passed. And we all have to be in this together. And that's just the way it is. This is your community. These are your parks. Until we can get the community to go ahead and pass a levy, you're gonna have to figure it out. One call to the EPA. When that thing is overflowing and I've seen the shit come out of it, I don't know who's gonna make that call. Might be me when I'm out there. Might not be me. But we're already dealing with EPA with an overflow, and it's from some faulty equipment. We know this equipment's faulty. How long is it gonna take? Time to dig in, council. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we'll go round to round. We'll start with Suzanne.
Active Fit Triathlon was a big success. It was a beautiful morning. Licking Memorial, great. Police department was great. It was awesome to see the ATV out there. It was fantastic. Like it was really awesome to see it out there, and it was great with the public. And West Licking Fire was out there helping, and it was a beautiful morning. So it's always such a nice tradition in town. Thank you. That's all.
T-shirts in.
What's that? Not yet.
Mrs. Carter.
I have nothing. Not your color. But yes, t-shirts are looking good. Not your favorite color.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Mr. Barstow?
Well, on the park issue, you know, we had a park levy and it failed. It failed miserably. It failed in every ward and every precinct across the city, across the board. Didn't pass a single one. So I hear the voters. They didn't want to put money from their tax dollars back into the park. They spoke loud and clear. Loud and clear. I listened. For the park board to come back to us and say, well, you know, it's all your fault that the stuff isn't getting done. In my view, based on the voters' response, it's kind of where we are. And the equipment that Mr. Coy was talking about didn't fail because it was faulty. It failed because it was damaged by lightning. Just want to correct that. But that's just my view of the park situation. There we have it.
Mr. Higgins?
I have nothing.
Well, I guess, you know, I used to be I used to be the liaison for the park board, for council. That was a long time ago. But, this was an issue that's been bantered back and forth, and I know, at one time Nate was we were all gonna try to help each other and try to get it done, and it hasn't materialized. You know, we don't own that park, and I'd like to see us get that project done, because, you know, every time I have an event down there, somebody says, well, we'll go ahead and hurry up and we'll get it pumped out right before you have your event, so we don't have any issues. Well, yeah, we shouldn't be, I mean, that's, as you mentioned, the SHIT word, yeah, nobody likes to, that's not fun, that's not a new volleyball net, it's not a new basketball court, but it's still something that needs to be done. So I would hope that we find a way to get it done. Mr. Zett? Nothing. Mr. Walton?
Street committee, meeting planned for the 25th at 5 o'clock. And that's all I have.
Mr. Powell?
I have nothing.
You have nothing?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Got a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mrs. Carter, discussion and roll call.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes. Yes. Hicken.
Yes.
Carter. Yes.
Meeting adjourned.